people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. This meeting of the Cable Television Advisory Task Force is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 848-9229-7571. Then press the pound sign and press pound sign again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the meeting designated for public comment by following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in queue in the order they entered the prompt. In the event that, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide for real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. Now we'll have roll call. George Breslin.
Here.
Karen Campbell.
Here.
I, Carrie Colburn-Dion, here. Ken Lord.
Here.
John O'Neill.
Here.
And we also have in attendance Ryan Melyar, the
Here.
Executive Director of WCTV.
Here.
And Attorney William Hewitt from KP Law. Great, thank you. And item 2, we are going to skip for this meeting of reviewing the minutes. They are almost done and I will have them complete for our next meeting. And we can move on to the item number 3, which is department responses to the request for current uses and projected needs. And we received, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 6 responses from departments or committees. I think the most extensive needs seem to come from the school. Maybe you could summarize for us, Ken, the school's needs, because the rest seem to be more meeting coverage and program coverage by WCTV, which was great. We got some good feedback.
Yeah, I would say the schools falls into that same vein. It's really just the events. You know, we have so many events that they cover for us. So, you know, these needs drive the WCTV budget for staffing, which of course drives the need for funding. We didn't have any other cable related needs like fiber optic drops or things like that. So pretty much everything is meetings and coverage, and they do programs for us for the kids and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that seemed to be the gist of all of the other responses. We received response from the library, which was very positive. They talked about the different programming that they've filmed at WCTV and at their various programs, their exercise programs, yoga programs. They were very grateful to Ryan and to WCTV for the coverage that they've been receiving. Similarly, we received something from Terry Marciello, the Director of Elderly Services, who talked about the great coverage that they've received on their programs. And John Doherty from the Finance Committee was grateful for the meeting coverage. And he said that was primarily the use for the Finance Committee. Planning and Conservation, Valerie Gingrich sent a response that said that it was primarily for meeting coverage and for promoting open spaces, educating residents about resources and facilities. And then finally, we received a response from Karen Rashis, and she said that the coverage that they receive from WCTV is a tax classification hearing. Those were the responses. Is there anyone that we think we should try to obtain more of a response from that we didn't?
I'd like to give a little comment on some of those. I think what Terry wrote was excellent, and what the library wrote was excellent. I think Ken Lord's write-up needed to include some of the sporting activities that get covered, because that's not mentioned in there. And
It says athletic contests.
I'm sorry?
It says athletic contests.
Oh.
Yeah, sporting athletics.
I think it just could be expanded on a little bit, because there's so much coverage for the sporting events. The one from Finance Committee,
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't follow what he was trying to say, and I wouldn't include that as a write-up of, hey, they're great. That's just my opinion.
Well taken. Thank you. Does anyone else have comments?
I guess I have a general question. Was there ever, I know there was some discussion, Brian, maybe you can elaborate or comment on this. Did we ever agree to a MOU?
No, that's still in progress.
Okay. I think I would include just special coverage that we would need for maybe Board of Appeals that may come up with certain projects, just something to keep in mind as far as our needs.
Are you saying that you'd request the Board of Appeals to write in to lay out those needs in a similar fashion?
I wouldn't. It would just be sort of to keep in mind that there might be special cases and special permits that we may wish to use you guys to broadcast.
Sure. I mean, I suppose in the mix, we could also use something from Town Hall itself specifying the coverage of select board meetings, since that is one of our
True.
Our primary functions along the lines of what we've received here.
Okay.
And then I think I guess to clarify John Doherty's email, with this past year with the remote meetings, obviously we use WCTV to stream all of FinCom's meetings, but I believe usually you only cover the joint meeting, correct? Or do you broadcast every Finance Committee meeting?
We in the past years, we have broadcast every Finance
Okay,
Committee meeting, going back to when they were in person as well.
Okay.
Board of Appeals meetings were brought on specifically for talk about the detox center.
Yeah, so I think there may be some cases, specialized cases like those going forward, just to consider. Yeah.
I agree with John, especially with the possibility of the senior center and the town hall and school administration buildings coming live. There may be meetings that are open to the public that we would want to definitely have as public as possible. And that's probably the tip of the iceberg at this point. We're still talking about the Wildwood School and the substation. And so maybe that could be expanded on.
That's all very much in line with what WCTV has always offered to do, is jump in and cover meetings that are of importance. So it's just a matter of putting it more formally in writing that we could be asked to be drawn upon for these resources when these important meetings do come up.
Yeah, so maybe that could be in part of the town hall response, the general town hall response from Kerry.
It's important to note that the specifics of what WCTV covers and doesn't cover wouldn't be in a Verizon license. We're only using these to try to drive what funding we'll get for that. Those specifics and things like this are going to be in the town MOU with the contract between WCTV and the town, which we're in the process of renegotiating. So.
I'll draft something for the town manager to sign about meeting coverage and then all the special projects and new building plans. Okay.
And once
Anything
again,
else?
these aren't guarantees as part of a contract. This is just getting a sense of the asks of the town and how they've changed and how they've grown.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment about this topic? All right. The next thing was the subscriber percentage shares for the cable providers. I sent that out by email on April 26th. It looks like Comcast has 3,854 subscribers and Verizon has 2,934 subscribers. That's a little bit less.
I forget if I asked this already. Do we know like the total number of households in Wilmington?
So I did speak with Valerie Gingrich about the current estimated population, which is 23,445. And in the next few years, she does expect that to increase by just about 600 with some of the newer projects in town.
But they don't correlate that to households. I was curious if we knew like
don't know.
percentage of households that are subscribing to cable versus this. So
For years and years, we've been using the number 7,000. I would imagine that's going up with all the apartments coming in, and but 7,000 is what I've heard forever.
this is like 6,788 subscribers across the two. Of course, there are people who don't subscribe at all or are, you know, cord cutters or use Dish or, you know.
What is the assessment fees that is referenced in that email?
That's the 50 cent per subscriber fee that's in the contract. So the cable subscribers pay, not the cable subscribers, Verizon and Comcast pay a fee of 50 cents per subscriber to the town.
But the value, 1,927 for Comcast. Well,
That's the 50 cents per subscriber per year.
Right. And the town gets a check for that.
Yeah.
That
That's how
check
you do
usually
that.
comes right around this time. Is that correct, Carrie? Did you receive
It
that
was, I
check?
think it was March that it came in,
Okay.
and it's for last year. So they tally up all the subscribers in a calendar year and then assess 50 cents per subscriber. And that's how you can determine really the subscribers is based on the check. Okay, so, right, there's just under 7,000. So we must be above 7,000 households by now.
Hmm.
I'll see if I can find out from the tax collector how many real estate tax bills they send out. Maybe that would help us.
Wouldn't count the apartments, but
Right.
Town clerk's office might know.
Maybe we can get a better idea, but I think you're right. It's going to be difficult to get to that bottom number of how many. But it certainly looks like it's over 7,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this topic? All right, now we can move on to, thank you, Ryan, for sending us a 10-year capital budget and a 5-year operational budget. You want to walk us through it?
Sure. It's very much in line with what was presented to Comcast in terms of the different categories and the different anticipated needs of the studio in coming years. I can present comps for past purchases and things if it comes down to that, but many of these numbers were based on past purchases and past needs that we have experienced with an anticipated, if we're looking at the capital or the operational budget, there is just sort of a markedly percentage-based increase through the years, and based on operational. Some of these things are hypotheticals as well. Some of the things such as the improvement, what would be required for a new town hall and outfitting those things were included in this as well. And those were included back in the 10-year plan for Comcast also. As we go down the list, it's all sort of typical expenses for a media station. Nothing should really pop out as being too out of the ordinary. Our field equipment, our studio controls, much of it is really equipment related if we're looking at these things. Editing stations and computers. As we look at the non-WCTV facility upgrades, that's maintenance to spaces that we currently have, such as room 9 and the LGI at the high school where school committee meetings are held. And it's just the nature of technology that things don't last forever. So it's just sort of a strategic and spaced out attempt to space these costs out somewhat evenly throughout the years, but none of them are out of line. These are all things that we could upgrade right now if we had the funds to do so. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any specific questions about these numbers if anyone has anything.
Sure.
I do.
Yes.
This is this a 1-year budget, 532,000 per year for 5 years? It says operational expenses. So is this like your annual operating budget with the excluding capital expenses? Is this how much it costs to operate the studio on an annual basis?
Correct.
We're looking at the total expenditures.
Yeah, I'm looking at it says operational expenses 2020 to 2026, and then the bottom line is 532,833.
Yeah, that's
an annual operating expense
yes.
number. Okay. How much do you currently get from both Verizon and Comcast for the 5%?
Ken, do you have that available?
Let me see if I can find it here. The last, I mean, we cover all our expenses if that's what you're asking, but I can get you the exact number here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because we can't get any more than 5%. So whatever that is, that's what we're going to get this time. We can get more in capital, but and it frankly, it doesn't matter whether you call it capital or operating expenses. We'll get a certain amount of money from the 5% for both of them, and then we can ask for we can ask for money under quote capital. But if we need more for operations, we can always take from the capital funding in a year or two. There's no magic to having to have capital dollars spent on capital expenses.
Yeah, see, I only have the year to date for this year. I'm trying to find the last year.
So I'm
We can
looking
get to that
at
number.
the actual for 2020.
Yeah.
For Comcast and Verizon combined was $500,269.09.
Okay. So you've got a slight increase from that to the 532 number. And so for purposes of renewal of Verizon, obviously we're going to ask for the 5%. And you'll continue to get the income you get from the 5% for both licenses. And it's going to be pretty close to covering your costs. So you're good there. So the drill for us is to figure out how much more we're going to want from Verizon on an annual basis. And whatever additional funding we need over the 500,269 that we expect to get for the 5%, whatever more we need above that, we're going to call capital and we're going to ask for it. And so I see a 10-year capital expense spreadsheet that you sent that has a total at the end of, the total there at the end for 5 years is $528,600. And I just took the first 5 years because we'll only get a 5-year license from Verizon. I took the first 5 years and totaled up, and it's something like $322,300. If you want, we can just, we could divide that into 10 and call it $52,000 a year we want from Verizon, or we could, that's actually going to be more than the 322. Let me see what we get from Verizon now. We currently get, we get 381 divided by 15. So we're getting something like $25,000 a year in capital from Verizon. So you could go up and ask for the 322,000, which is just a number that I got from totaling the bottom line for the first 5 years. Okay. And I started 2021, even though that's now. So I took 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and 25 up to that 141 number, or actually 26. And I totaled those and it comes out to $322,000 for 5 years. So what I'm trying to do is reduce your needs to money, to dollars, because the way you do this is you say we want 5% and we want X amount of money, Verizon. So we know we're going to get the 5%, can't get any more. So the question is, what is that X amount of additional money we want? And based on what you've shown me here, that X amount is either going to be maybe 322,000 if I've done the math right, or you could divide the 528 by 10 and say we want, 52,800 a year for 5 years, something like that. Okay. Now, so the question to you is that going to do it? Will that meet your needs? It looks to me like it will from the papers you've given me.
My question is, are you then dividing it or splitting it between Comcast and Verizon, because we're receiving these capital checks from both of them? So that I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my next question. The 528.6 10-year capital needs is your total capital needs from Correct.
Both carriers. All right. So in that case, you would divide it, and you divide it by the approximate, let's see, 38 and 29. So it's going to be about 42%, or just, whatever that percentage is. Let's call it 45%, just so, because it's a round number. So, by the way, if I seem to be rambling to anybody and you're not following me, please let me know. What I'm trying to do is get to the bottom line capital number that we will want from Verizon based on your needs. So 45% times 52.8 a year for the capital is, find my little calculator here. Well, it looks like it's about $23,000 a year.
From Verizon, yep.
From Verizon, yeah. And you're currently getting $25,000 a year. So we're not going to ask for less.
No.
And my suggestion is, because we know that the 5%, or we suspect, even though you may have growth in Wilmington, you may have new housing units, new households constructed over the 5 or 10 years. And the numbers, the subscriber numbers may stay level, they may decline slightly, they may go up a little, who knows? But the general consensus, the conventional wisdom is, because people are cutting the cord, cable subscription rates numbers are generally expected to be going down over the next 5 and 10 years. We know we can't get you any more than 5%. So that 5% number, if it follows the trends, is going to level or maybe decline slightly. If you're lucky, it may go up. And there are some places where it actually is, but the general trend is that 5% number of subscribers, the 5% based on gross revenues, will decline with the number of subscribers declining. So we have to fill the gap, if you will. We have to catch you up and make sure you don't have a shortfall by asking for more capital. You follow me?
Yes.
Okay, so my thought here is we're going to ask for the 5%. Your 10-year capital plan calls for about $23,000 a year from Verizon. I would suggest we ask for something like $30,000 or $35,000 a year from Verizon.
Because there definitely is a gap between the operational budget and the money that's coming in annually from both Verizon and Comcast.
That's right. I'll tell you something else about Verizon that's interesting. It's hard to figure out what they're thinking or where they think they're going or whether they really want to be in the cable business much longer. I've accused them for about 3 or 4 years of wanting to get out of the business, and they vehemently deny it. And yet, if you read what they put into their licenses, it looks like they are thinking about trying to get out. For example, they will insist, apart from the 5-year license, which tells me they're thinking short-term, not long-term. Apart from that, they are insisting that there be an escape clause in their licenses now. That is, they'll say, after 3 years, if we want to terminate the license, we can do that and just leave town. And everybody objected to high heaven, but they came back and said, we insist. There's no way we'll issue a license without that. And if you don't like it, we'll try and compensate and give you a little bit extra money to sweeten it up so you'll agree to it. So I have found Verizon to be willing to give us a little bit more money that we might even ask or want in exchange for agreeing to that escape clause. And we've got no real way around that. It's non-negotiable. It's one of those things. We have to live with it. And those licenses have been signed now for about 2 or 3 years with that sort of term in it. But it allows us to say to Verizon, all right, you guys want to bail early, fine, give us more money. And they'll do that. So my sense here is we'll get 5%, and we could probably ask for 35, maybe even 4,000 capital a year for 5 years, which would equate to 400,000 in 10 years. So my suggestion is let's ask them for it. All they can do is say no. Let's ask them for, say, 40,000 a year. That's in 5 years. That's 200,000. Is that right? Yeah. So that'll help you fill the gap you might have in your operating expenses. It'll give you extra capital, give you a little bit of cushion for what is reasonably anticipated or expected to be a decline in subscribers and a decline in the 5% revenues. What do you think of that?
Sounds great.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
No guarantee we'll get it. But on the other hand, I found Verizon, I mean, they're sticklers about some things, but they're a lot easier to deal with on the money side than Comcast. I don't know why that is, but that's there's different corporate cultures. So it seems to me we're ready because first of all, thank you for all the work you've done. It's really a pleasure to be meeting with you and seeing that you've done all this work. You've got budgets, annual budgets, you've thought through capital. You've got all the numbers there. We're ready to go. We're ready to sit down and start talking with Verizon. So congratulations on that. Verizon.
I just have to chime in, and I know nobody's watching this, but I couldn't have done a lot of this without support from Ken Lord on our board here and from my wonderful staff. Mary and Adam, who are both instrumental in helping scope and map some of these projections out.
I mean, it's just a pleasure to see this kind of work having been done already, and the thought and the detail, it just makes it easy for all of us. So my thought is, it's probably a little too early to be reaching out to Verizon, to tell you the truth. Their license is up February 2022. I'll send them an email and say, when would you like to talk? We're ready to meet with you. We're ready to discuss. They don't renew early. Nobody renews early. So I don't expect to get anything from them, until February 25th, 2022, but we can always start talking. And in the meantime, you folks have just done a great job. I mean, this is all really, really super, really helpful, and it just makes everybody's job, even mine, a lot easier. So thank you.
That's great to hear. Now, we do have to have a public hearing, right?
You have to have a public hearing, and I usually say that maybe it's different during COVID now because people don't attend anyway, but it used to be back when we had live meetings and live hearings, the best time for a public hearing was in the fall. It was in like September, when everybody's kind of out of vacation mode. The weather's cool again, people are kind of school starting up and things are sort of starting up in the fall. It's a good time to have a public hearing. People come out to it and they talk and they join the meeting and they talk and they participate. That's the goal. The purpose of the public hearing is really threefold. It's an education process. We're educating the public on what WCTV does and how much it costs. And thank you very much for your pass-through costs because you're paying for this. And here's what you get in exchange for it. We're educating Verizon on what we're going to be asking for. Get ready. Here it comes. Here's our needs. Here's our budget. Here's our capital list. We're going to be asking you for this. And the third thing is, the board is the issuing authority. So when we figure out what it is we want to ask, as a courtesy to the board, we should be including them in the loop and saying, we're thinking of asking for this, and it'll have the following effects on pass-through costs. We want you to know this. Please let us know if you think you can agree to this, because that's what we're going to be negotiating for. And we need to do that before we start negotiating because it's their license.
Sure.
So those are the purposes of the public hearing. And as I say, it used to be that autumn was the best time. Spring's too busy, crazy, town meetings, FinCom, budgets, softball, baseball, graduation, wedding, everything's going on in the spring. Summer is vacation time. Nobody shows up for a hearing in the summer, but fall's a good time to start because everybody's kind of back to real life. So I would suggest that you think about a public hearing in the fall. It may be we can have it live. And live public hearings get a lot more people out than remote ones. I've done a bunch of them remotely. It's often the case you only have one or two people logging on. The idea is to get as much participation as possible. So WCTV and maybe Carrie too. You can when you pick a date for the hearing, advertise it, publicize it.
Okay.
Put it on the community bulletin board. Folks, come on out. There's going to be a public hearing. Join us. We're negotiating a license with Verizon. This is for our future here, future of public access in the town, future of communications in the town, cable in the town. It's important for you to come out and tell us two things. One, is Verizon complying with its license? And two, what should we be asking for? And what we should be asking for you can make a presentation of the information you've given, the annual operating expenses, the annual budget, and the 5-10-year capital plan. Okay. So public hearings are a great sales opportunity. And I often say to the access folks, if you can produce a little 5-minute video vignette of what you do, the schools, local athletic programs, all of the things you were just talking about, the library, use of the elderly center, senior center.
Oh, we've got it in the can, ready to go.
If you've got a little, a little 5-minute video you can put on about how great you are, this is the chance to do it. It's a sales event. So there you are. We need a public hearing. It's the only requirement, the only actual legal requirement before you sign the license or grant a license. But it's an excellent opportunity to make our pitch to the town, to Verizon, to the board, to everybody. And then following that, we're ready to sit down with Verizon. It probably won't take long. I don't think it'll take long with Verizon at all. My guess is maybe 1 meeting, 2 meetings, maybe. We can ask for 40,000. If they come back and say, we only give you 35, that's still going to be good.
Yeah.
So
Is there any more information that I can prepare for you in terms of do you need to see us tracking the decline in revenue? Is that something what do you specifically need?
You know, what I need is what you've given me.
Okay.
Capital list, annual operating budget. That's what I need. I translate that into the license terms, 5% gross annual revenues and X amount of capital per year. And that's what we ask for. For your own informational purposes, the decline in annual operating grants that come from them under the 5% is of interest. And maybe it would be good to project that out over 5 years and see what kind of a decline, what kind of a loss you're expecting on an annual basis, so we can know what you need to make up from the capital. That's internal for internal consumption, but it's not something we need for the public hearing. It's not necessarily anything we need for negotiations.
Okay.
Right.
do the figures in the current spreadsheets support that $40,000 ask? Or do we need to massage that at all?
They're going to look at it. They're going to understand what we're doing. To answer your question, no, they support a lesser amount. But Comcast would probably point that out. I don't think Verizon will. As I said, we've been squeezing Verizon for more money without any justification other than you're imposing terms on us we don't like. You're imposing a 5-year license, we don't like it. You're imposing an escape clause after 3 years, we don't like that. So give us more money. And they say, okay. So to answer your question, no, these numbers support a lesser amount. But what the heck? We probably can get more from them. They probably won't ask to justify it. They'll see these numbers, they'll see the budget, they'll see the capital list. They'll realize we're talking within the realm of reality. We didn't just make this stuff up. And they'll know. If they want to ask me, well, why do you need a little bit more than this? We can tell them we need a little bit more than these numbers because we know our annual revenues are going to decline. All right. We need a cushion. And that'll be good enough.
Okay.
Also, can't you make the argument that if you look at the 10-year costs, there's only 1 year, 2024, I think, that is below the 40,000.
You're breaking up.
I understand the whole averaging process, but
Yeah,
And these are, estimates.
right.
True.
that's right. These are good. Believe me, nobody's going to question these numbers. This is excellent.
Thank you, Ryan.
Just exactly what I love to see.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
Numbers. And I can't tell you how much easier it makes it. I've had budgets that are just fluff, that are just marshmallow, that's nothing there, and people are making up numbers, and I've said to them, please be real. Well, this is the best we can do. You show it to the cable company and they look at that and they say, well, what is this? They know what it costs to maintain and operate a studio and to do production. They have a good idea about these things because it's their business. So when you get something like this, that's real numbers and makes sense, and it's not asking for the moon. I asked one town once to give me their cable needs, a town smaller than Wilmington, and they came back with a $2.5 million. I thought that's a little bit too much. This is perfect. I mean, this is right in the ballpark. So I can't thank you enough.
Great. Any more discussion about this? Or any questions? Okay, so our next topic is new business. What do we need to do to prepare for the public meeting other than scheduling the date, of course, posting the notices and advertising? Are there other things that we should be working on now?
The two things that are the most important components are, one, the presentation by the Access folks on, their background, their history. Here's what we do. We're here for you. It's community outreach, that kind of thing. Schools, all the communities they serve, all that. And I understand that's there. And the other thing that you would want to do is just have a slide of the budget, the annual budget and the 10-year capital plan. Just put them in a slide up on the screen. So, you know, when we talk about it, we can just, it's back there on the screen behind us. Everybody can see it. And that's it. Well, I shouldn't say that's it. The other thing that's really helpful, if it's something you can do, is to call on alumni who have gone through the schools, who have learned television, media, and have gone on into the industry and are working in the industry. Some towns have got really amazing alumni from their high school programs. They went on to Emerson College. Now they're working for NPR. They're working for CBS or something like that, or they're working for, you know, Google. I mean, there are some real success stories out there of students from the town who have gone through, who have had training at the Access Center and have gone and they have careers in the media. Maybe you've got alumni like that you can call on, and you can have them either come back in person or send you a little video of, you know, I went through high school, I learned this from, you know, the Access Studio, I went on to Emerson College, I went here, I went there, I went to, you know, wherever you went. And now I got this great job, you know, working for, you know, PBS or something like that. If there are those kinds of folks out there who are alumni that you can call on, that is always a really compelling presentation. It's great to see local kids who have gone on and made good because of exactly the kind of thing we're asking for funding for. So the combination of the video, the combination of these slides with the budget and the capital list, and then success stories from local folks. And if you haven't got those kinds of alumni, then just have some people from, you know, the same kind of folks you were talking about a minute ago. Somebody from the senior center, somebody from the library, somebody from FinCom, from the schools, saying, this is such a great asset. We use it all the time. Here's how we use it. We need it. We want to continue it. That sort of thing. It's kind of testimonials. And those kind of folks can come in to the hearing. If it's live, they appear live. If it's remote, they'll come on remotely and just say about 2 or 3 minutes about why, for 2 or 3 minutes, why what WCTV does is really great for the library, for the FinCom, for the boards, for zoning, for the senior center, for high school sports, that kind of stuff. So those types of things are really helpful too.
Great.
I know in the past, a lot of these different organizations had submitted letters that were sort of read in or just sort of presented to Jeff Hull, et cetera. Yep. And I think it'd be much more impactful if we can, if those people can't appear in person, to try to get these video testimonials, because that's what we do. We can make a beautiful video presentation and have real people speaking. That'll always be a better option over a piece of paper. So seeing who's willing to come in and speak in person or via Zoom, however it ends up happening. And if they can't, trying to push them into recording a little something for us, even right here at the studio. I think
perfect. That'd be perfect.
Yeah,
because that's powerful. I mean, that is so graphically powerful about how valuable this is for real people in town.
And we can reuse all of it too. It's not.
Yeah. Yep.
And if they're not willing, we'll threaten them.
I think you'll find lots of people who are willing. People who are sincere about their gratitude for this service, and are almost always willing to come back and talk about how great it is. That's the good thing about it. If you're in media, you like to have your face before a camera. A lot of
I
times.
like that idea, Ryan, of a video, and we could even ask like Tina Stewart and Terry Marciello to be part of the video, and that way they don't have to get up and speak. It's all recorded.
They've been huge advocates. We could also tie into Lou Samaglia, because we've done a lot with veteran services, and that would be another great point.
Yeah, good idea.
Absolutely. I think
because when we produce it, we can fill it with examples of the work that we've doing as a little refresher. You know, we can have Mia from the high school athletic teams, Mia Muzio. Yeah. And we've been working with her very closely to have that interview, but give it a full treatment where we sprinkle in all the different coverage of high school sports that we've done throughout the year. It can be very impactful.
And don't forget to say something about COVID too. In almost every community where I've been doing a current license renewal, the word is during this pandemic, more people have turned to and relied on information from public access. I mean, the numbers where people are keeping track of viewership and subscribership, the numbers are way up. More people have been watching. It's been a valuable resource and a valuable public asset for that type of situation. So I'm sure you found that to be the case in Wilmington too. And to whatever extent you can, honk your own horn about that. I mean, that's a success story.
Carrie and John can speak to how many different types of meetings we've been asked to cover that had never been covered pre-COVID.
Exactly.
And how we've jumped in not only to fulfill those open meeting requirements, but to get that information out and available and accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah, WCTV has been absolutely critical for, the open government and being accessible to residents while, our doors have been closed.
Right. I totally agree. We've been very grateful and very fortunate
Yeah.
to have such support.
So you got a great story to tell. Be sure you tell it.
Awesome.
Ryan, do you have access to viewership statistics?
We don't have access to viewership on television, which is probably what they're most interested in as a cable company. They don't provide us with any of those Nielsen ratings that you can get, nor do they provide us with a channel guide to see what program is even on the television at a given time. So that's one of the most difficult things is we don't know who's watching unless they call up and tell us. We do have we can see who's watched something after the fact on our video on demand services.
Oh, good. Okay.
So we can
Start.
That's the start. Yeah. And those numbers almost always will show an increase during the pandemic, I think.
Oh,
Also
some
during
of the
the
highest
pandemic.
numbers we've ever seen for school committee meetings and things like that, astronomical views.
Yep. I mean, there's a success story right there.
George, you were saying something?
Yeah, during the pandemic, there were a number of live feeds from the sporting events because the parents could not enter the
That's true too.
arenas, and I believe you can get the numbers from Facebook Live and whatever other social media things that you were running on.
I heard Nielsen's working on a new rating system, Nielsen 1, to cover streaming and a number of other things.
Interesting.
It's random information, sorry.
So I guess the next thing is to schedule our public hearing and start working towards it.
Yes, and I'll reach out to Verizon. There's a guy named Paul Train who does their negotiating, and there's a guy named Neil somebody, Niall.
Niall, yeah.
Niall Connor. The two of them come around and they do an initial meeting with you where, it's just kind of a face-to-face, get to know each other. They'll probably want to do that. So I can send an email to Paul and Neil and say, when do you want to start talking about Wilmington? See what they say.
Fabulous. Thank you.
I'll tell them we're looking generally at the public hearing in the fall and we're actually getting ready to talk with you anytime you want. So, but I'll do that. And then, so the next thing for you folks to do would be to plan the public hearing.
Great.
Very good.
And pick a date in the fall sometime. If you want me to be there, I'd be happy to. I usually do go to them. Don't have to, but I usually go to them because sometimes legal questions come up like, why can't we fire this cable company and bring somebody else in? Or why can't we talk about programming? Or why can't we lower rates? All legal questions. So if you want me there, I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely. The town is planning to start meeting all of our meetings in person as of June 15th.
Okay. It's going to be nice to do that again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it.
We've had a few so far, and it's very different. We've had masks, but now, of course,
Yeah.
next week we can start without masks too.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it'll be get back to normal.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's very convenient to do all this at home by Zoom, but to tell you the truth, when it comes to things like a public hearing, it's not the same on a screen.
Mhm. So should we plan another meeting, a short meeting, I guess, to talk about the public hearing, where, when?
I always find that it's a helpful thing to have a kind of, maybe a week or so before the public hearing, to have a final get together, just to make sure everything's fallen into place and to build a little plan. You'll want to have somebody who's going to chair the meeting. And I can usually send a kind of a script, not kind of like an agenda script on how to, leading you through an introduction, that sort of thing. Happy to do that if you want one.
Yes, please.
You'll need to make, when you pick the date, you'll need to advertise it by publishing it in newspapers, local newspapers, on a weekly basis for 2 successive weeks before the hearing.
Okay.
In the materials that I sent you, I probably included a notice for public hearing, but if you want me to resend it, I'd be happy to. So you'll want to pick a date, and then maybe a meeting, you may want to have meetings, before then too, but at least maybe a week or 2 weeks before the public hearing, a final meeting, so we can just kind of, collect our plans, finalize our plans, and prepare for the hearing.
Carrie, Wilmington WCTV has a regular slot in the town crier, so that's it. I don't know if we want something more featured in terms of this publication. Otherwise, we have our regular slot where we could put that information in for the weeks leading up.
That's great. I think we should publicize it in addition to posting, the public hearing. Get as much out there as we can and post it on the town website. We can tweet it. We can send out notices, and maybe even WCTV can have some advertising on in between meetings if you do that.
So in the notice that I think I sent you, it says that the purpose of the public hearing is twofold. And you should put this in whatever advertising and promotions you make, and it'll be in the newspaper notice too. But there's 2 reasons. One is it's a compliance audit. That is Verizon complying with their current license? All right. If they're not, that gives us a lot more leverage in our renewal negotiations, but in all probability they are. Cable companies 20 years ago sometimes couldn't comply with proper signal quality or with customer service, but they've gotten a lot better. And particularly with the new technology now with, digital TV and high def where they do that, there aren't any signal quality problems anymore. And with fiber optic cable, there's hardly any outage issues anymore. And when there is an outage, they can find it and fix it really quick. So there usually aren't any compliance issues, but maybe there are. We'll see. If people have complaints, it's very possible. So the first one is, are they in compliance? And then the second purpose is what we've been talking about, the town's future community cable related needs. And we're seeking public input for that before we make a final pitch to Verizon. So in your ads and your community notices and so on, emphasize those 2 points. That's why people should come out to the hearing. Tell us if Verizon is complying, and tell us what you think we need to ask for.
Perfect. Any other things that we should be working on or aware of, or does anyone have any other comments? This has been great, Attorney Hewitt. I really appreciate your guidance on this. It's been a pleasure.
Well, it has for me too, because you folks have done such a great job. Do you want me to resend that meeting notice, or do you think you've got that in the?
I think that I have it. If I don't, I'll reach out to you, but
Let
I
me know.
believe
Okay.
that I do. And
Okay.
then maybe Ryan and I can work on it and use it for putting together some ads and information.
Yeah.
We'll get on it and get ahead of this so that it's ready to go.
Perfect. And if you want to run them by me and put my eye to them, I will. I'm happy to do that.
That would be
Sure,
great.
they'll be fine.
Great, thank you. We would appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Do we have any calls, John? At all?
We do not.
Surprise. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring up, either new business or questions or comments or things that we should be doing? No, great. This is a great committee. I really appreciate all of you. I've enjoyed this process, and it's great to work with a group like this. So thank you. All right, so we should probably come up. I'll work with, I guess, Beverly to look at the calendar for September, and I can send out some dates to everyone to see what it looks like, and trying to come up with a good date for the public hearing, and then we can back into it. Does that sound good?
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll look and see what's coming up in September. And Ken, I'll probably reach out to you too, to make sure that we're not interfering with any school committee meetings or something like that, so that everyone can attend that wants to.
Sure.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Great, all in favor? I guess we have to do roll call since we're remote. George,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ken,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you all. And I will send an email out to everyone and we'll start working on the dates, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Great,
Great.
thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you, Attorney Hewitt.
You're welcome.
Great.